It's been another crazy week of football, but we're going to be looking at some trends at the wide receiver position to determine what we want to do with some of these players or the players around them or the offensive scheme. But before we dig into the metrics, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Stop missing out on these deep dives, this information, the advanced metrics to help you in the waiver wire, help you win those trades, help you set those lineups, and overall win your leagues. But let's dig into this. Let's look at these 10 wide receivers real quick here. First one is Trayon Burks. Had a decent day with 3 catches, 76 yards on 4 targets. Interesting game script. This game went off the chain a little bit as the Chargers was able to push the pace a little bit, causing the Titans to throw it, move the chains a little bit more. Trayon Burks benefited from that. 85 air yards on the game, 16.7% target share, 40.3% share of the air yards. During the offseason, we said this about Trayon Burks. He's going to have off and on games like this, boom bust scenarios, really game script dependent. We look at him as a talented wide receiver who could really go off any given time. He's a first round pick, has good size, adjusted athleticism, and can win off yak. We saw him get some yak in this game on that deep ball right there. That's a good thing to see. Bigger guy, can win at the catch point a little bit. And the thing about him, we have DeAndre Hopkins there, lower volume passing offense that will push the pace if they have to. We saw it this week. And in those game scripts where they have to, that's when you're going to want to look at him. That doesn't mean you're going to want to start him, though. But he does hold some value in fantasy. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a few more games like this over the course of the season. Whether you should get him or not, that's up to you. He's a volatile option. You're going to want to start him as a gamble in some weeks, and some weeks you're going to want to fade him, and that's just how it's going to be until this offense starts throwing the ball more. Next, we're looking at Nico Collins here. He went off last week. He went off this week. Him and C.J. Stroud have a good rapport with each other, and he's getting the air yards. We said this all offseason long. He's going to get around 20 to 25% target share, and he's going to be getting the deep ball attempts. He's going to be getting those air yards 2 weeks in a row so far. If he's sitting on waivers in your league, you got to snatch him up, but he should have been a trendy late round flyer in the double-digit rounds of your draft this year. This was just another game where we saw him be productive, get those opportunities. 7 catches, 146 yards, and 1 touchdown. We're not just chasing recent production. This isn't recency bias right now. This is over a course of time. We saw this last year. He was getting deep ball attempts. He was getting a good target share. Things just need to materialize. We got a better quarterback here, more accurate targets downfield. And it's looking good for Nico Collins, a cheap wide receiver that you could have gotten drafts that's going to get opportunities downfield. Is it going to be every game? No, because we have to deal with the rookie quarterback blues, because that is a thing. However, when you're looking at opportunity, you're looking at targets downfield, he's a guy you want to look at. Next, we're looking at Josh Reynolds here. 82 air yards on a good game here where he caught 5 balls, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This game script was perfect for him. We saw Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell blow up Seattle last week, so we knew there was a good opportunity that Josh Reynolds could do some things this week. And the reason why we went with him in this offense was because he is their deep ball specialist, the deep ball wide receiver. Going to see those targets downfield. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's more likely going to soak up the short to intermediate game. So this is a good opportunity for a wide receiver like this, and he captured it. A 29.1% share of the air yards, 17.6% target share. They were moving the ball around. Josh Reynolds will have some games right now because the Lions are going to be in these games where they're going to have to put up points. They're going to have to move the football. They're going to have to throw it around the yard, and he's going to be a benefactor. Another player you want to think about is Jameson Williams, because when he comes back, he's going to be the clear-out guy. He's going to be the deep ball guy, and I look for him to be more like a Will Fuller because of how he's going to be used, how he's going to be implemented, and how the targets are going to be distributed. He's going to get those deep targets. He'll have a game where he brings in 1 or 2 of those. It'll blow up, and then a bunch of bust games and a couple more blow-up games. That's just really how we see this happening with Jameson Williams. When he comes back, that's probably the likely scenario. Not a bust, not a top-tier guy, just something like that in the middle where it's more like a Will Fuller scenario. Go look back at his fantasy output from game to game back when he was a full-time starter. and you'll see how that could be a likely scenario for him. Same thing here for kind of Josh Reynolds. Second wide receiver, third wide receiver, and a high-volume passing offense here that can move the chains, that wants to dictate pace here. And you got a wide receiver here that could have some weeks like this and some good matchups. Next, we are looking at Christian Kirk. Was absent last week, did not put up any fantasy points, but now it came his way. 77 air yards on 14 targets, 110 receiving yards, 53 yards after the catch, 28% share of the air yards, 34% target share. Again, the Jaguars can move the ball around. They got some good wide receivers on this team with Ridley, Zay Jones, and him. There's going to be game scripts here that it's going to be hard to predict which one's the pick between him and Zay Jones. Ridley, you're going to be going with no matter what, really, because he is the alpha, the cog of the offense. But him and Zay Jones are going to just take their turns, and whatever's open in that game is going to be open. And the big miss in this game really was the game script for me, because I was expecting more of a higher scoring game than this. This was very on the low end compared to what I was looking at. That was maybe my biggest miss of the week, was this game script, the flow of the game. And that's my biggest miss of the week for sure. However, looking at this offense, the Jaguars, they're explosive. They move the ball around. Even though the score doesn't dictate that, they are good in the passing game. Good accurate targets from Trevor Lawrence. And you're going to want to pick your poison with these wide receivers depending on game script, depending on the flow, depending on the matchups, because you're going to see some fantasy production coming from this offense. Next, we're going to look at Drake London. He had just one target last week, but he came back and produced the numbers we thought he would do in his offense, catching 6 balls, 67 yards, and 1 touchdown. Had 53 air yards, but a 24% target share and a 24% share of the air yards as he gets targets deep downfield. You see in the chart right there, a couple targets past 20 yards. That is a big part of his game. If we can connect on those targets, you're going to get a good fantasy week from him, and you also should see more games where he's around the 5 to 10 range in targets versus the 1 target. This should be more his average throughout the year, not like what we saw last week. Last week was just a weird game. Now we got what we're supposed to see from Drake London. He should be a start for most of the season here, depending on how stacked your roster is at wide receiver. Drake London, though, is a player who's going to get a large workload in this offense. Now we're looking at Sky Moore. Had a rough game last week in a slower matchup here against the Jaguars that was predicted to be higher scoring. Like I said earlier, 57 air yards, 20.6% share of the air yards, a 10% target share. Travis Kelce was back. Caught 3 balls, 70 yards, 1 TD. That long play, as you see in the chart, was a big factor on that scoring for his fantasy production. The thing about this Chiefs offense, and I'm going to say it again, I've said it a million times every single time I talk about these Chiefs wide receivers. It's going to be game to game, and each game, one wide receiver is going to hit, and the rest of them are going to leave you scratching your head, and you're not going to know which one's going to do it. You can give your best guess, but you're not going to know which one or 2 of them are going to do it. It's going to be off and on, because Patrick Mahomes doesn't lock onto a guy. He's good enough to step back there, move around the pocket a little bit, and if you're open, he's going to sling it. If he thinks he can fit it in there, he's going to sling it. And that means these wide receivers are going to go off and on throughout the season, and you're going to see Sky Moore games, you're going to see Justin Ross games, you're going to see Kadarius Toney games, you're going to see Rice games, and that's just how it's going to be played. Last week was a Rice game, we got a Moore game here, and it's going to be off and on all season long. Next, we got an old horse here with Nelson Agholor here, getting some production. 5 catches, 63 yards, and 1 touchdown. Honestly, what this tells me is I don't want any part of these wide receivers except for Zay. And really, it's because you're not going to know what you're going to get game to game due to the flow of the offense, due to a lot of targets going to Mark Andrews, a running quarterback. You're just not going to know what you're going to get. You do get a lot of deep targets in this offense. You usually get a couple grandiose deep balls. Not just deep balls, but grandiose deep balls that anybody in this offense could bring down and really impact their fantasy production. That's something you want to look at here. But again, it's going to be off and on. This isn't a run to the waiver wire for Nelson Agholor. he had some good production, some good opportunity in this game. And if we see a trend in this, then yes. But right now, I think it's going to be off and on with the rest of wide receivers in his offense. I'm talking about Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, and Nelson Agholor. But I think Zay Flowers is going to be the guy you're going to want in this receiver corps. He's not going to go boom every week, but he's got a lot of upside. He's getting a lot of workload, and he's good. Now we're looking at Mike Evans. And the reason why we're looking at him is he was left for dead during draft season. He had an ADP of wide receiver 35 on Underdog Best Ball, but in drafts, as I noted, he was going around the wide receiver 40 range, sometimes even worse. People were scared of this offense. He's getting older. We got the injury history. However, what I noted was we got Baker Mayfield, 6th in the league in deep ball attempts. He likes to go YOLO with it or check it down to the running back. I thought we were going to get a lot of spike weeks out of him. It's going to be up and down due to the nature of the offense. We got 2 back-to-back good games out on Mike Evans, and that's because he gets the air yards. He gets deep downfield, and we see that throughout his career, him surmounting the odds. 111 air yards, 33.1% share of the air yards, 25% target share. Again, Baker Mayfield likes to toss it deep. That is the tendency we've seen throughout the years. He's going to want to continue to do that. As long as Mike Evans is on the field, he's going to give you a chance to do stuff like this. And those deep ball attempts are going to come his way. And if he brings 1 or 2 in, it's going to be a big week. If he doesn't bring it in, if the target misses, then it's not going to be a big week. And it's a gamble, but the price you paid, wide receiver 35, probably around the highest, wide receiver 40 range, you're loving it. You're loving it. You're loving that gamble because of the target share, the upside, the targets downfield. And again, we're going to have some down weeks. That's just the nature of his position, being the deep ball guy in an offense with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. And that's just how it is. That's just how the game's played. But you're going to get games like this too. Next, we're looking at Gabe Davis. And really, he's a sneaky start every week. Very boom bust. Kind of got that Will Fuller effect. But he hits a little bit more on the boom as long as he's healthy on the field. Played with an ankle injury a bit last year. 76 air yards yesterday, 46.6% share of the air yards, almost a 20% target share, 92 yards, 1 touchdown off 6 catches. And we're going to expect this off and on all season long. There are going to be games where he busts. There's going to be games like this where he hits, and that's the nature of Gabe Davis. That is the Gabe Davis effect here. He's going to give you boom weeks. He's going to give you bust weeks, and that's just how the game is played with Gabe Davis. Next is Michael Pittman, and he's a certified alpha, even with the quarterback change here, because he is getting targets for days. 12 in this game, 38.7% target share. He's elite. That's an elite target share. That's good for fantasy. That's a great workload metric. Sometimes his game scripts are not going to be great for him. 8 for 56 off this workload is not the greatest, but again, when you're getting this workload, it elevates the floor and then more likely to hit the ceiling. That's a great thing to see out on Michael Pittman. You're going to have down games. You're going to have that with every wide receiver, even if they're getting a large target share or not. But the fact is, we had a rookie quarterback that caused his price to deflate a little bit in drafts, in ADP, kind of fell like a round or so later than he should have went. Now we're getting a good share of the yards, good share of the targets, good share of everything here. Things are looking good for Michael Pittman. We got to point that out. 8 catches, 56 yards, not the greatest line either. And if your league mates are not looking at the workload metrics, you may be able to catch him cheap in a trade. Kick the tires, see what comes back at you. But those are some trends that we're looking at so far. As you know, I'm going to be digging the spreadsheets, looking for more, and I'll have more videos up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way back. Catch you on the next video.